I'm a licensed attorney in the state of North Carolina who's worked extensively in the areas of high conflict custody, alienation, domestic violence, and post-separation abuse. Not only am I a domestic violence attorney, but I'm also a survivor of domestic violence. I've been through the court system as a single mom going up against an abusive spouse, so I feel you and I'm here to help you. I know how frustrating the legal process can be when going up against an abusive spouse, and especially if you're a woman of faith. I'm going to share with you my personal and professional experience to empower you to fight your legal battle with faith, knowledge, support, and the courage to find freedom. My faith is at the core of all that I do, and I believe that is the reason that I have been successful in my personal case and in my professional cases. I'm excited to share what I know with you so that you can be successful too. Let's get started. Abusers want to take away your power by filling you with lies and fear, keeping you isolated, making you feel trapped and in their control. One of the things that we hope to do with Live Free Legal is empower you with knowledge, because knowledge is power. We have a free gift for you today. It's my guide called Top Lies Abusers Tell. Click on the link below in order to get your free guide. I'm going to start empowering you with the truth so that you can go from fear to freedom. One of the first things that you need to know is there is a difference in domestic law between federal laws and state laws. State laws will largely determine how your case turns out. States are going to apply the state laws when applying the laws to the factors in your case rather than federal laws, for the most part. Sometimes federal laws are codified or ruled into the statutes in your states, but state laws are largely going to determine the outcome in your case. So it's very important that you know your state, you know the laws in your state. I am a North Carolina licensed attorney, and I can only provide legal advice to residents of North Carolina. The goal with Live Free Legal is to provide general knowledge to help you improve the outcome of your case. If you need specific legal advice, I would highly encourage you to seek legal consult with an attorney in your particular state. Now, the outcome of your case can also vary by county and by judge. Remember that judges are people too. They could be having just a bad day. Maybe the weather is bad and their arthritis is acting up. Maybe they had a fight with their spouse before coming to court, or they have a rebellious or temperamental teenager. So, they're people too, and they can have bad days. It can also vary by county. Different counties do things in different ways. They have certain ideologies or belief systems. So a key to success is to, one, know your judge and know your county and know what they do in those counties. And part of that is finding an attorney who practices in that particular county and practices many cases actually in court, who litigates a lot, because they're going to know what the judges are going to do and can advise you about the best courses of action. So today we're going to start at the very beginning. How does the law define domestic violence, or Domestic Violence 101? When my clients come to me, many of them do not know that they are in abusive relationships. When I first left my abusive spouse in 2008, I didn't even know that I was in a domestic violence relationship. I knew that something was wrong. I knew something didn't feel right, but I did not know that I was in a violent relationship that entitled me to legal relief. And many of my clients don't know that either. The U.S. Department of Justice and the Office on Violence Against Women, there's a link provided in this slide. You are welcome to click on that link to get more information. But federal law and the U.S. Department of Justice defines domestic violence as follows. It is a pattern of abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner to gain or maintain power and control over another intimate partner. So the key is this is about power and control. This is a repeated pattern of behavior in that relationship. Domestic violence can be physical, sexual, emotional, economic, psychological, or technological actions or threats of actions or other patterns of coercive behavior that influence another person within an intimate partner relationship. This includes any behaviors that intimidate, manipulate, humiliate, isolate, frighten, terrorize, coerce, threaten, blame, hurt, injure, or wound someone. And I want to point out that the federal legal definition of domestic violence includes things like manipulate, humiliate, isolate, frighten. Some other names or terms associated with domestic violence include intimate partner violence, domestic abuse, spousal abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse, stalking, coercive control, child abuse, gaslighting, victim blaming, emotional manipulation, sexual abuse. We have a link for you for the power and control wheel. If you're not familiar with the power and control wheel, I would highly encourage you to become familiar with the power and control wheel. This wheel is so critical to pointing out all the different ways that abusers exert their power and control over you. These are all forms of domestic violence, using intimidation, using economic abuse like financial control, using the children against you, intimidation, emotional abuse, manipulation, denying, and blaming you all the time. It is always your fault. There is nothing that you can do right. Male privilege, spiritual abuse, using scripture in order to create a situation where you are supposed to be submissive and give in to any of his unreasonable and many times sinful demands, which is not what God has called you to do. Each state has their own definition of domestic violence. So these are the legal statutory definitions of domestic violence that entitle you to get legal help. And there is an amazing website. It's called womenslaw.org. I would highly encourage you to go there. You can click on your individual state and you can look at your statute for your state on domestic violence. So how does your state define domestic violence? It also has information on how does your state define custody. What are your rights as far as a parent, as far as custody is concerned? It has information on alienation, law enforcement centers, places where you can get help, how to prepare for court, more information about abuse, and places where you can get help. One of the things I'd like to do is go through some examples of how the individual states define domestic violence. I think it's very important to know that domestic violence is not just physical assault or physical abuse. Domestic violence across the states is broadly legally defined, and there is help for you if you are experiencing other forms of abuse. And so I have a printout from the American Bar Association, and they actually went through all of the states and they looked at the statutes or the laws in each of those states and how they defined domestic violence and who was entitled for a protection order based on what they were experiencing there in their home. And I pulled out a few key characteristics of their statutes. Defines domestic violence as harassment, kidnapping, menacing, or trespass. Now, this isn't the only way they define domestic violence. Their statute is much bigger than this. But I did want to point out, hey, here's some ways Alabama recognizes domestic violence that isn't just physical abuse. In Alaska, they recognize legally domestic violence as interference with a report of domestic violence or custodial interference. Again, this is not how they completely define domestic violence. There's much more to the statute than that. But those are just some things you may not have thought of. California also considers domestic violence to be stalking, harassing, or stalking phone calls and destroying property. Delaware considers any other conduct which a reasonable person under the circumstances would find threatening. Illinois considers domestic violence to be intimidation of a dependent or interference with personal liberty. Iowa considers pointing or firing a gun to be domestic violence. Maine considers restricting someone's movements or following a person or being at or in the vicinity of the person's home, school, business, or place of employment to be a form of domestic violence. In Michigan, considers threatening to kill or physically injure a named individual or unlawful removal of children from the person having custody domestic violence. So threatening to take your children from you is a form of domestic violence. And just a couple more. Missouri considers domestic violence to be peering in the window or lingering outside the residence of another. And then unlawful imprisonment. And then North Carolina, the state where I live in, is attempting to cause bodily injury or intentionally causing bodily injury, placing the victim in fear of imminent serious bodily injury. But the most common one is harassment, which is continuous and gives rise to substantial emotional distress. That means behavior that's so harassing that it causes a person to experience physiological or behavioral distress. So not feeling good to your stomach, not being able to sleep, being jumpy, being reactive, feeling like you need to get on medication, being depressed. All of those things would be examples of emotional distress. Many of the definitions across the states include things like false imprisonment, arson, destruction of personal property. And false imprisonment could be he's taking your keys and not allowing you to leave the house. Maybe he's locking you in a room. Or maybe he's just using his body in a menacing way to not let you leave a particular area because he's forcing you to have this discussion that's going on and on and on and on, and won't let you leave an area. That would be a form of false imprisonment. We also see animals. So abusing pets in any way or using pets in a threatening way, that's also across many of the statutes. So it's very important to know that domestic violence is not just physical abuse. It has a very, very broad definition across the states, and there is help for you and hope for you. We hope that you felt empowered today and that you will join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. as we explore what legal help is available for victims of domestic violence. Remember to click on the link to get your free guide, Top Lies Abusers Tell, and get started on your legal empowerment journey today. Make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more updates on upcoming videos. Remember, I'm a licensed attorney in North Carolina and I cannot offer legal advice outside of North Carolina. The purpose of these videos is to offer general advice, not legal advice. It's to help you improve your legal outcomes. I would encourage you to seek the advice of an attorney in your area if you need additional help. You were created to live free, not in bondage. Join us next time as we continue to learn more, support one another, and continue to move from fear to freedom.